Alright, I have news. Over the last several years, Dell have completely fallen off a cliff. They used to be the best laptop manufacturer for consumer laptops, but they just kept making these really dumb decisions. Yet at the same time, they've been charging ludicrous amounts of money for their laptops like they are perfect. Well, surprisingly, Dell have just released one of the best laptops of 2026, their new XPS 13. And guys, given how crap their new Alienware 15 is, we were absolutely shocked. Now, since I value your time, I'm not going to make you watch this entire video to find out why we're so stoked about these laptops. I'm just going to tell you right now. The XPS is really doing what the Neo did, but for Windows laptops. It's bringing this premium, well-built device into the sub-$700 price point. In fact, less than $600 if you're a student. And just like the Neo, the XPS 13 is very well built and looks great. It has a fantastic display. It's just a really all-round complete package, which is rare at this price point. You see, most laptops have major cons like terrible displays or bad build quality. In fact, the XPS is even better than the Neo in several material ways. It has a backlit keyboard, it comes standard with more storage, it is lighter yet its display is larger, and you can configure the XPS with 16GB of memory. Speaking personally, I think the XPS 13 is the best laptop at this price point, if you can handle its major con, which is the same as the Neo. Poor performance. This laptop's performance, it really limits it to basic computing, like just browsing the web and using Office applications. And upgrading it to 16GB of memory, it doesn't elevate it much above that. We of course have both models. So just like I said with the Neo, people like students, they need to be very careful about buying this laptop. Only buy it if you are certain that what you're studying has basic computing needs like, say, nursing, and you are sure that in the future you aren't going to want to switch courses or try something different that will require more performance. The XPS 13, great coffee store laptop, but just don't expect it to do video editing or anything like that. Do check out our website, bestlaptop.deals. That's where you want to be going if you want to see a different recommendation. In fact, over there we just launched our new student laptop buying area. On that page, you can find a laptop based on your specific course. I'm going to now hand off to Sierra, who's going to walk you through this review.
Thanks, Josh. Let's start with how it looks. The XPS 13 looks extremely stylish for what it is and what it costs. Thanks to its light blue-gray color and super thin aluminum build, the XPS leans modern and sleek. This is mainly in comparison to the Neo, which I'd call cute and bubbly by contrast. Although I still find the XPS to be cute in its own way. On how portable it is, it's super compact and lightweight. It's slim like a MacBook Air, but much smaller. This is impressive considering it has a similar screen size of around 13.4 to the Air's 13.6. It's closer in size to the MacBook Neo, which only has a 13-inch screen. This makes it a joy to carry around. It was so small and light, I found myself carrying it with one hand. Despite its lighter weight, it's extremely well built. This means there is barely any keyboard deck flex and minimal screen wiggle, which blows most budget laptops out of the water. Both the Neo and the XPS have brought higher quality construction into a price tier that rarely had it before. On the XPS, the hinges aren't quite as stiff as I expect on a touchscreen laptop like this one, meaning the screen does move a bit more than I'd prefer when touching it. On the other hand, this does have the benefit of making it easier to open with one hand, which is not always a given on small laptops. When you open it, you'll see a bit of a sharp edge at the front of the keyboard deck. With a laptop this thin, this won't always be noticeable or annoying, but you may find it cutting into your wrists if you don't have support for your arms, like on a plane. Speaking of more common use cases, when I was using the XPS in bed, I couldn't sit up as straight as I'd like because the screen doesn't go as far back as I'd like. Another place the XPS shines is its display. It's a high-resolution 2560 by 1600 IPS panel. You heard me right. It is not an OLED, but it still looks fantastic. It has top-tier color accuracy covering almost 100% of the P3 spectrum, which will make movies look wonderful. It also gets very bright around 500 nits. On top of that, it has a very effective anti-reflective coating that makes it appear like a matte display. It's probably the best laptop to use outdoors around this price point. Great if you're a student using it out on the quad or at a coffee store. The display refreshes it up to 120 Hz, so moving content looks nice and smooth compared to the 60 Hz one of the Neo. All of these factors, along with how many pixels they've packed into this tiny 13.4-inch screen, lead to a very beautiful display. And, like I said earlier, it is a touchscreen, which is a huge bonus. It does not support pen input, but that's something you're less likely to use on a laptop like this since it doesn't flip around into a tablet. Overall, this display also punches way above its price point, just like the chassis. The keyboard on the XPS 13 is decent, but far from great. It's a very low-travel keyboard at 0.8 millimeters. When writing this script, my fingers were getting tired from how often I was bottoming out. That means I'd hit the bottom of the keyboard deck, and usually pretty hard, because my hands expected there to be more space. I also switched directly over to this one from a 1.6 millimeter Lenovo keyboard, which is a stark adjustment. Josh is more used to lower travel keyboards as he frequently uses MacBooks, which have 1 millimeter of key travel. He felt the MacBook's keyboard felt better to type on because the keys have a little more travel and they have less resistance to the press with a more noticeable click. I prefer the XPS as I like more resistance when the keyboard is so low travel. So, it really depends on what type of keyboard you like. Keep in mind, a downside of the kind of keyboards Josh likes is that they are louder to type on. The XPS 13 is very quiet, great for class or a meeting. The keyboard layout is also standard, which is great. And there is a physical function row unlike prior XPS 13s. I want to confirm we didn't have the keyboard typo issues that we had on the XPS 14. On paper, the XPS 14 has the same key travel, but this is a better keyboard. Also, bonus points over the Neo, the XPS 13 has a backlight that's actually pretty effective in darker environments. Yay! We also like that the power button is on the keyboard, so you won't press it accidentally like what happens on many other laptops. Lenovo does this a lot. The trackpad is completely fine. It's mechanical with smooth tracking and an accurate click. The click isn't loud at all, and it's not too deep either, which minimizes distractions and misclicks. Ports on this laptop are scarce, and one of its major cons. There are 2 USB-C ports on either side that support up to 10 gigabit speeds, as well as DisplayPort and charging. Having a port on both sides makes docking or charging more convenient, which is nice. I have a Bluetooth mouse and headphones, so I only needed a single USB-C cable coming from my monitor that also happens to charge the laptop. Not everyone has this sort of clean setup, though. Many mice use USB-A, lots of headphones are wired. Both at the lower end and higher end, many peripherals still connect via USB-A or headphone jack. These ports are going to be limiting for many people. If you have to buy something special because the laptop doesn't have the right ports or you have to use a dongle, it's annoying. Speakers are not a strong suit. They sound pretty loud, but when you listen to them for a while, you'll notice that there is no bass. On top of that, most of the spectrum is overly processed and sounds a little muddy. On the processing, we could literally hear compression where the volume would be pulled down during peaks. We could not find any obvious software to adjust this. This is how the 1080p webcam looks and sounds on the new XPS 13 in studio lighting. I think the image looks a little grainy, but the audio does sound all right. When we switch over to house lighting, the graininess does become a bit more obvious on the XPS 13, but it does have IR for Windows Hello, which is a bonus over the MacBook Neo. For performance, let's start with the elephant in the room. As Josh said, this uses a very low-powered processor. We even refer to it as poor performance on our website, which means it's only suitable for light use, browsing the web, Microsoft Office, and studying disciplines with basic computing needs. As you can see from our graphs, the XPS 13 performs around the same as the MacBook Neo. And that laptop uses a mobile phone processor from 2 years ago. There is no question that you can get a better performing laptop at this price point. It just won't be as nice of a laptop as the XPS or the Neo. Going into this video, my biggest question was if Windows 11 could run well on 8 gigs of RAM. Josh and the team also wanted to know if the upgraded XPS 13 with 16 gigs makes it a better buy than the Neo, as that laptop maxes out at 8. The short answer is, it depends on what you're doing. I did syncing with Dropbox and OneDrive, in-browser graphic design like Canva, as well as some complex Excel and PowerPoint work, including running macros. Both XPSs and the Neo felt snappy enough with short loading times. No major complaints. I was even pleased to see that I could play super light games like Terraria, and Ethan was able to play League of Legends getting decent frame rates. We weren't sure this would be the case because the Core Series 3 chips have a cut-down 2-core GPU of the Core Ultra, which have 4. This might catch you off guard because Intel have labeled them both Intel graphics, but the expensive one is twice as good. But let's dive into the memory more, because we bought both XPS configs to show you the difference. You'll notice that in Windows Task Manager, 8 gigs of memory always looks bad. You'll see 6 to 7 gigs constantly in use during normal tasks. When you are shopping in a store, you might hear salespeople saying you'll need more than 8 gigs if you have lots of browser tabs open. So we tested that. The XPS 13 with 8 gigs started to see longer loading times with 24 Chrome tabs open, but it was still usable until we hit 40 or so. The Neo with 8 gig only started to show slowdowns at 40 tabs. macOS does much better with 8 gigs of memory when compared to Windows. I had heard this before, but we had never tested it ourselves. The XPS with 16 gig was able to get up to 60 tabs before its load times got noticeably worse. And keep in mind, we didn't have any other applications open, so your mileage will probably be less. There are really 2 ways not having enough memory will affect you. As memory fills up, unused browser tabs or apps are swapped to storage to free up memory for new ones. You may experience slowdowns like we did. The other way 8 gigs of memory may affect you is some apps or projects simply won't open, particularly specialist applications. You run this risk on both the Neo and the XPS with that config. Let's now talk about heat and fan noise. For my normal use, I never heard any fan noise, although if you are doing heavier tasks like installing an application, the laptop can get warm. Josh and Sam agreed it was still comfortable enough to use, even on your lap. I only ever heard the fans going on our 8 gig XPS during the Chrome tab browser stress test, but it was so quiet, I had to hold my ear up to it. Next, let's talk battery life. Again, in real-world use, I found battery life to be pretty great. In our testing, this lines up. When running Office tasks until the battery died, it lasted almost twice as long as the MacBook Neo. This is probably because the Neo has a smaller battery, but it is impressive that the XPS 13 weighs less with a larger battery. The more expensive XPS 14 lasts much longer, that has an even larger battery and a display that goes right down to 1 Hz. For upgradeability and maintenance, you can replace the short 2230 SSD, and these shorter SSDs do tend to be more expensive. You can also replace the battery. The Wi-Fi 7 card is soldered though. This is a bit disappointing, as the Wi-Fi 7 card only uses the 160 MHz channel. It doesn't use the 320 MHz one. This means you don't get a major bump over Wi-Fi 6E. For Linux, we tried Ubuntu and Fedora, the latest versions, and it didn't quite work on either. The Wi-Fi card wasn't recognized, and neither were the speakers. Let's wrap. Overall, this is a great laptop for the right type of user. The best laptop at this price point that I've ever used. But there is no room for a laptop like this to grow with you over time. It might be good enough for what you're doing today, but it might not be ideal if you pick up new hobbies or switch courses. So buy responsibly. If you want more performance, you will have to give up the quality of this laptop or the Neo if you're staying around this price point. Look for a laptop with a Core Ultra processor or a Snapdragon one. I've linked some options down below, and of course, you'll find them on our website, bestlaptop.deals. We track prices across retailers and specifically highlight if a laptop's current price is a great deal. Until next time, I hope y'all have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will catch you later.